Hangover, 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 hangover.
Welcome to episode 5 of Hangover Radio.
We got a super exciting show for you guys.
Mouth watering.
Absolutely. We got an interview with none other than Jack fucking Donovan. You excited, Dom?
I am super excited. The legend, the author of The Way of Men. It doesn't get any bigger than that in the Manosphere, Mark.
The book, huge influence, a big influence, and it's a great book. If anyone hasn't checked it out, check out The Way of Men. He's about to come on the show. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
See, are you guys ready for Jack Donovan?
You want to call him right now?
Let's do it. Let's give him a ring.
Okay. Right. I'm just gonna click Skype here. Right. Okay. He's online. He's ready to go. Jack Donovan. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks for having me.
So, for those listeners who don't know, Jack Donovan is author of The Way of Men and his new book, Skyclad and Eagles, as well as other books. Now, The Way of Men, for those who haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. It is one of the best books I've ever read. Jack is a legend. I must say, I'm a massive fan, Jack. A massive fan.
Excellent.
Right after I read your book, I wanted to go slay a lion, like just chase after a cheetah or something.
It's hard to get that done in the modern world, but yeah.
Well, it could be done.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not lions.
No,
but,
I had to settle for like throwing a rock at a squirrel.
If that made you feel better, you got your hunter-gatherer, thing out. That's good.
Well, I went out and immediately joined the gym. That's a positive thing that I did right after I read The Way of Men.
Oh wow, that's excellent.
No, really, I did. Like I'm if you should see me body now versus a year ago, I'm a new man. I mean,
Were you tinier?
No, I was tiny. I was
shit.
fat and skinny, man. I was fat and skinny. So
Not a good
how is
combination.
life, Jack?
Life is really good. I just opened this past 6 months. I opened a tattoo shop.
Nice.
A tattoo shop.
So I actually have a tattoo shop called New Barbarian Tattoo.
New
and
Barbarian.
it's,
Of course, it's called New Barbarian.
I
That's
like
an
exactly
awesome name.
right.
I like it.
And I opened it, and it's actually attached to a powerlifting gym. So that's
No
kind of
way.
awesome.
Insane.
Yeah. So it's like basically, like a lot of times I'll be tattooing somebody, and there'll be, strong men will be out there like screaming and stuff. I've tattooed people during a powerlifting meet, which was kind of funny. So it's a lot of fun. I really like the environment. It's kind of my writing office now too. It's kind of my world headquarters, and I tattoo there sometimes, basically. So
have you done all the artwork for your books and your site and the shirts that you have?
yes.
Yes. The Way of Men cover is legendary. I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What prompted you to write The Way of Men? I say, just for listeners who don't know about the book, how would you describe it yourself? Like if to sum it up.
I would say it is the best book out there defining what masculinity actually is, without putting morals on top of it, without confusing it with different cultures. I think it's the best universal definition of masculinity that I think that most men can actually agree on.
Yeah, you know what? If anything, it's amoral, and that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
But I loved the story of Rome and the things about the virtues of man, and it really, really resonated for me. I've read tons and tons of books, on self-development, and a lot of guys who get into like the likes of game kind of walk this path, but nothing quite struck a chord like your book. Your book kind of went off and explored the topic of masculinity in a way that a lot of books haven't yet. You kind of looked at a much deeper sense of what it means to be a man than anything else I've read. I mean, why did you feel the need to write The Way of Men?
Well, I started writing about men and masculinity, I don't know, maybe at least 2005, 2006. And the first the first few things that I wrote about it, I did kind of the same thing that I see a lot of guys now doing. I see a lot of guys starting new blogs about masculinity and this and that, and our tendency is to kind of grab the things that sound best to us that we've heard all our lives that kind of have stuck with us, and we kind of recycle them and repeat them, and we come up with things that sound good, but maybe we haven't thought it the whole way through. And some of the criticism of my earlier work kind of brought that out. Just like, well, that's just what you were brought up with. That's not, that doesn't apply here, here, and here. And so it just became an interesting kind of project for me. And I said that was valid. And just to think about it deeper. Think about it past, whatever sounded good or whatever sounded motivational or whatever, and really look at what we're really talking about. What really, if we look at one guy and we look at another guy and we say that guy's manly and that guy's not, I feel like we could do that all around the world to a certain extent. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you have to squash any of your previous notions to write any of the newer ideas that went into the way of man, or was it mostly just ideas that you had previously already had?
Oh, I would definitely say some things evolved. I mean, I think the big separation that came out of the book, I think that was really important, was the difference between being a good man and being good at being a man.
I love that. Yeah,
that's a great.
That was actually that was the biggest thing I took away from the book. There's a difference between people respect men who are good at being men over good men. That was definitely the number one thing I took away.
Like
from
pirates.
Yeah,
like
that's
yeah, and if you were raised and you had if you were raised you had good parents and a good family and they taught you to be responsible and whatever, a lot of guys want to roll that into masculinity, and then that kind of confuses their whole idea of it. And then they want to make it. A lot of times I've heard guys say like masculinity is being responsible. Women
right, but we all love the anti-hero as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why we say that all these same guys love the movie The Godfather. Like they all love the anti-hero, and they don't think those guys are unmanly. So
also I find that in the modern age, there is this effort by segments of society to kind of redefine and shape masculinity in a way that they see fit.
One always wants to redefine masculinity in the way that they see fit because it's politically advantageous. I mean, like, if you can convince people that, your regime, if you follow your regime, this regime, you'll be more masculine than the other regime. It's really important to men to be masculine. So if you can sell that, I mean, we use it to sell products and stuff all the time. They use it to sell Axe body spray. Like if you buy this, then you'll be more masculine. And so I mean, it's a big selling point. So everyone is always trying to make it, attach it to their thing.
All right. But in your opinion, right, you write a lot about masculinity, what it means to be a man. Do you think that gender is a social construct? Now, I don't myself, but what's your opinion of this argument that gender is a social construct and not something that's genetic?
Well, like so many things in life, the answer is both. It's not either or. Everybody wants to have an either or answer. It's always nature or nurture. And I think that obviously there are parts of masculinity that, if people believe in evolution at all, obviously men were selected for slightly different traits and psychologies and lifestyle, like to do different jobs than women. I mean, that's why we have different bodies. That's why we think slightly differently. And I do think that that's genetic, absolutely. And there's definitely, and they don't really even understand the brain well enough to know how genetic it is. But obviously, there's something there that makes us different. That isn't just, Johnny wore blue and Jane wore pink, and that defined their whole psychology. But I do think that we program each other. I mean, masculinity is also, and that's why I think that men are kind of failing and flailing in our society. Is that I do think that men need to be around other men to kind of access the best of who they are. Otherwise they just kind of, flounder, and I think that's what we see now.
Right. In my blog, I usually give advice to a younger crowd because I'm 22 myself, so I don't feel like I have the authority to speak to an older crowd. But what I mostly get is, before it used to be just in the minority community where it was just them that were growing up without fathers, but now that's also almost an epidemic here in America. How does one, I guess, sort of find that, mentorship that one needs to evolve as a man?
It's hard. That's a tough one. I mean, that's the big challenge for everybody. I think the places where men can just be in a group of men without females kind of policing what they say, which I think is, how you learn all that stuff and how you evolve as a man to a certain extent. Finding those places is getting harder and harder. And
I don't think they even exist anymore.
Well, you could. Well, you could. It's certainly not commercial spaces because that would be illegal. But
yeah, right.
But not. Once it's a business, then it has to cater to everybody. But there's certainly groups of guys that get together of their own accord. It's just a matter of finding, some men who have positive qualities rather that you want to emulate instead of, kind of people who will just kiss your ass.
So what were some, I guess, positive male mentorship models that you got growing up that, were able to help you develop those traits?
Well, I think I started investigating this stuff a lot later in life, but my dad's actually he's actually a pretty good dad. He actually was handicapped, but he's one of those guys who's handicapped and didn't want anyone to know instead of like the victim handicap.
Right.
So he just told
old
people
school
he was
tough guy.
instead of he had polio when he was a kid, really, but yeah. So he's not like he doesn't go around beating people up or anything, but he was just kind of a proud man, and I always respected that about him. But more later in life, I kind of had to seek out, do what you're saying. Many of your listeners and readers will have to do. I had to seek out. I was working kind of office jobs and stuff like that, and I actually kind of went to do more kind of blue collar area to kind of find guys who were on areas that I needed challenging a little bit more. And so I had a really good friend of mine who we just drove around in a truck, delivering stuff for a few years. And he's still one of my best friends. And he was such a jerk to me for the first 6 months I knew him. But it was just because he came from a harder background, and so it was But I learned a lot from him, and so I keep seeking those guys out who I think have some qualities that I want to pick up. And I think you have to keep doing that if you want to keep growing.
This relates to a chapter in your book. You kind of explore the idea about homosexuality related to primates, and you ask the question: are we more like bonobos or are we more like chimps? Just for listeners who may not be familiar with the kind of sexual activities of both of these species, could you briefly outline the differences before I ask my question?
Sure. Well, it's believed, and it's kind of hard. You never know how much of anything that comes out of academia is really true. But it is believed and has been promoted that bonobos, because basically they didn't share territory with gorillas, they had kind of a free and easy life that had, they had readily available food all the time, and so they live a life very similar to what we live today almost, where their males don't know their fathers. They're really only attached to their mothers. The mothers kind of interrupt any kind of men getting, the males getting together and ganging up in any way, and kind of tamp down on their violent tendencies. And everybody pretty much has sex with everyone all the time. And that's basically all they have to do because their life is kind of just about pleasure. Whereas, chimpanzees had to compete for resources, so they formed very patriarchal societies, where the men formed hunting parties. The bonobos will eat meat. It's not really a big part of their menu, whereas the chimpanzees are pretty focused on hunting, and they'll actually go and pick off members of other groups of chimpanzees if there's a lot of competition for resources, and they'll actually go and pick them off, which is kind of from what we know about really primitive warfare, was kind of like some tribes will just slowly kind of pick away at strays from the other tribe just to kind of dwindle their numbers down.
So this leads on to my question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that human sexuality, or perhaps even primates in general, their sexuality is dependent on resources? In other words, when there's an abundance of resources, we kind of act more like bonobos, but when there's a lack of resources, we act more like chimpanzees. Do you think there's a case to be made to say that human sexuality is some way correlated with resource availability?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about any kind of society that has just kind of an abundance of resources, if you look at even like ancient Rome is always the example that people throw out. You have this highly cosmopolitan city, and of course it was also known for lots of debauchery and people having sex with everybody, and lots of adultery and all kinds of whores everywhere. And anytime you've had this really successful cosmopolitan area, and usually back in the day it was always like slave labor brought all the wealth into the city, and so people could afford to kind of just do whatever they wanted to. Whereas I think if you have people who have to be a little bit more mindful of their resources, they do tend to be a little bit more conservative in a lot of ways. And certainly, I mean, but the big resource that we have today that people didn't have back then was obviously we have chemical contraception. So that's a whole nother level of abundance really that we have that they didn't have before, which is why feminism why they're always so focused on reproductive rights, because they know that that's their ticket. Like with that, without the pill, feminism goes away. It's basically okay. Men and women have sex, baby. Okay, your little magic career is gone. So
poof.
It's without the birth control that's effective and reliable like that, feminism can't survive in the form that it has right now.
Yeah, and you have to question, especially in the States, if you look at the national debt and stuff, how long can this last? How long can this kind of welfare dependency and the state paying for all these kind of things last? Because if you look at the numbers, it's a ticking time bomb.
It seems to be that way. But it's kind of hard to predict. I mean, we're not wrong.
With the dollar,
they can always print more money, dude.
Yeah.
But with the dollar as with
the
dollar as the world's reserve currency, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah.
The world's reserve currency will always have problems, but at the end of the day, it's the modern gold. It's the gold standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wonder, so what is the way of men dependent on resources? That's my question.
To a certain extent. I mean, obviously, like our whole evolutionary history, we've been had to be more concerned with survival than we are now. So, I mean, that is part of our evolutionary background. And that's the thing about evolutionary psychology is that the world changes a lot in a short period of time, but we don't necessarily change quite as fast. I mean, there is evidence that there are leaps in how we change, and certain processes with people breeding with other people and things like that change who we are, but not that fast. So
you've just hit on the main point, and that is that we live in a world that has developed exponentially faster than we have biologically in terms of technology, in terms of from a society point of view as well. So, I mean, for the modern man, who takes thousands of years to evolve, for us to feel at peace or satisfied or content as a man, we kind of need to go back.
That brings his article. Time of the Wolf, I believe.
This is Jack's.
Jack's article.
Yeah.
Time of the Wolf. That is going back majorly. Can you tell, I guess, the listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's called The Age of Wolves. It was really interesting. I went out and got to hang out with a group of guys in Virginia. And they're basically a heathen gang. They have some of the trappings of a motorcycle gang, but it's not really about motorcycles. It's really about kind of building a tribe. And they have normal lives too. They're not completely divorced from the rest of society, of course, but it's just I go out there and it's a bunch of guys, no shirts, no shoes, and fighting in the dirt all day with a banjo playing.
Sounds awesome.
It was totally awesome. It was really cool. They had women there. There were kids there. Everybody was
Did you get to rumble with
it together? No, actually, I had just taken a boot off. I had broken my ankle in a martial arts class, and so I really wasn't able to do much of anything.
That's a pretty good excuse. I was broke my ankle in a martial arts class.
There is no feeling like hitting somebody in the face with your bare hands. I'll tell you, because I used to do boxing for a while, and the first time they put me in the ring with this huge Godzilla monster, it was the most exciting and scariest time of my life at the same time. Although a lot of people don't understand, and they claim that it's very primal, to fight another person. It's very barbaric, and they don't understand. Yeah.
It's both primal and barbaric, and that's why we like it.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people in the mainstream think we should have evolved from that. That's what I get a lot of.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just like, do you even science, bro? That's not how evolution works. They always say evolve like it's a verb. That you should just go ahead and evolve because you read an article on Huffington Post, and that's not how evolution works.
So, a question: if you were to give 3 pieces of advice to the modern man on how they can I don't know, I don't want to be cheesy and say find themselves or just improve their lives,
regain their masculinity, almost.
Regain, in terms of finding their masculine self. What kind of 3 things, active things that they can do right now to kind of get in touch with their masculine core? Well,
to a certain extent, it depends where they're starting at. Because everybody starts at a different place. Yeah. If you're completely have no idea where to start, I've met those guys, and then the average Joe. I think the first thing you need to do. Obviously, like we talk about, maybe get involved in some kind of martial art. I think that's, if you're not involved in something like that already, I think some kind of martial art. Lifting is great. Powerlifting is great. Strongman, that stuff's all really great. I think it's even more important, and to go out and try and find something where you have that kind of contact with men, where you have to deal with all the kind of primal emotions of aggression and things like that. I think that teaches you a lot about who you are.
Because the modern man is very content with just watching this on TV, just watching, sports,
vicarious.
Yeah,
vicarious. Exactly. You talk about this in your book,
fantasy football.
Yeah, like watching people scream at men that are bigger than them and telling them what to do. Like watching people screaming at TVs, telling guys who are so much more skilled than them what they should be doing. It's just like these guys need to go out and get punched in the face a few times themselves. Maybe they shut up. That's I think it's more important to go and live that experience than it is to watch other people do it. And
that's number 1. That's great advice. My New Year's resolution, I put it on my blog, was to get punched in the face. Hasn't happened yet. That was my New Year's resolution.
I got you after the show.
Yeah, I know. So I'm in the gym. I got
right side, left side.
Now I need to get punched in the face. So that's happening. But wait, number 2. What's number 2?
Number 2, I would say go out and trying. I mean, this may be a pathway from number one, but I really think a lot of men don't have enough guy time. They aren't surrounded with enough men, and I think that
You said
you
start
kind
a
of have to
gang.
find a way to seek out other men. Yeah, start a gang. And that's harder than it sounds. Everybody's really busy.
It is. I
it's-
don't know if you know about my goings on. Do you know, like me and my friends, we travel to war zones dressed as Mexican pirates?
I saw some stuff like that. I wasn't sure what that was all about. It sounds awesome.
No, yeah. We check it out. I have a documentary up on YouTube where we all went to Somalia dressed as Mexican pirates.
Wow.
A suicide bomber fucking got involved, and it's crazy shit. Check it out. It's fucking mad stuff.
Wow. Yeah. No, that sounds. I mean, yeah. Do something like that.
Yeah, man. Maybe not. I don't recommend anyone go to Somalia dressed as a Mexican pirate. It's a bad idea.
That's a lawsuit waiting to happen for us.
But yeah, get a gang going. I think it's so important for guys to have a clique of guy friends in their life, and guy time. Yeah, get more guy time. Set aside time for guy time, and say it if you're with a girl or your partner. Make sure you make time, and that's sacred time for you to hang out with the lads.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't have a third one ready, but why don't we just make number 3? Learn how to say no. I think a lot of guys are kind of pushovers, especially when it comes to the girls in their lives.
Yeah.
They need to
say no.
They need to learn how to say no and set boundaries, because that's how you get that guy time. Without being able to say no, she'll just say no. I want to do this instead, and you're like, sorry guys.
Right.
I had this guy who was calling me. I mean, he wanted a tattoo appointment, and he rescheduled 3 times because his wife told him to. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, I can't really say this to him because I'm going to see him again, but I'm just like, I don't really respect you now.
You could tell him here in Hangover Radio.
Yeah.
We don't
exactly.
respect you.
I'm sure he'll never hear this, but he's just like this, this person I see occasionally, and I'm just like, I'm not really interested in even working or talking to this guy anymore.
I hope he's not tattooing his wife's name on his ass.
Oh,
I know. Because the thing is, it's like, it's one thing, there's 2 different levels of how he's being emasculated. It's either his wife really does completely run his life and tell him what to do, which is sad in one way, or he thinks it's okay to change his mind and use his wife as an excuse, which is kind of just as bad. That he's not embarrassed to say that his wife runs his life is kind of just as bad. So I don't know. So yeah, learn to say no, because I think that's a hard thing for men today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and a lot of guys nowadays, they apologize for everything as well. They should stop doing that too.
Yeah.
Just as much as say no.
Absolutely.
Everything is just
So moving on. Your latest book, Skyclad and Eagles, just for listeners who might be interested, who've read The Way of Men, which was an awesome book, and they want to get another taste of your work. Briefly, kind of give us a little synopsis about the latest one.
Well, it's an essay collection, so it's basically kind of my greatest hits over the past maybe 4 or 5 years. Some things that I've written online. I wrote some new essays for the book. It includes transcripts of some speeches that I gave at different conferences. And but the kind of overarching idea of the book is, and it was while I was writing The Way of Men, a lot of it, and whatever, but it kind of all came together. It just kind of this idea of that there's really nothing to look up to in America anymore. There's no really this overriding idea of there's nothing for men to really look up to, and it's kind of my kind of making peace with not caring about the American dream anymore, and kind of distancing myself from that identity. And I think that that's important, and it's something that I'm going to talk about even more probably whenever I get around to writing my next book. But because you start out The Way of Men and you realize that modernity and our civilization and all this stuff really isn't giving us what we need from it. And then you have to, kind of the next progression is, well, what's wrong with it, and how, and how, if I don't want to be part of it anymore, how do I go about doing that? And if I want it to change, how do I go about doing that? And so that's kind of what the Sky Without Eagles is, kind of me, looking at America and not really seeing, kind of separating myself from that.
And dare I ask, what is in the pipeline for the future, in terms of are you going to keep writing, or you got another book planned, or are you just kind of chilling out at the minute, working on your tattoo shop? What's Jack Donovan's
master plan?
Yeah, what's his master plan?
Well, definitely there'll be another book. It's just a matter of getting into the mode of researching and stuff, and doing everything that I want to do and make sure that it's good, because it's easier to put together a collection of stuff you already wrote than to write a whole bunch of new stuff. So it's a bigger project, and I kind of have to envision how it's going to come together. That's kind of the preview of it. The kind of my first sketch of it was the speech I gave at MPI last October, which was called "Becoming the New Barbarians." And so that was just kind of my sketch as to where I'm going to go. So it's going to have something to do with that, and the kind of that progression of kind of becoming stateless within a state. And,
yeah, it's similar to, I think, the 5 flags thing. I think Neil Strauss wrote about the idea that you pay taxes in one country, get a passport in another country, and the idea of being your own man, completely independent. Have you heard of that concept, the 5 flags?
No, I haven't heard of that. But what I'm talking about more, because I think that, it's one thing. It's like, if we can move everywhere and whatever. That's probably all good ideas too. But I think that the modern world kind of makes us disconnected from each other to the point where we're kind of easier to control. Maybe not one individual as opposed to another, but I think if we're ever going to live a different kind of life from the modern life and be divorced from it in any real way, we kind of need that tribe. And how to how to start a gang, how to become a group of people who are not part of the state. And that's why I like the hanging out with the Wolves of Vinland so much, because I think that is their project. They've been working on that for 7 years. So
a lot of readers ask, how do you start a gang? How do you get, for Mark, it's usually, how do you get a crew to travel with you? What are some, I guess, basic rules that you would say in starting your own gang?
Well, if you're really talking about what a gang is, you're really talking about shared interests. As long as people have these completely separate interests, then I think it's hard for them to really be connected in any way that when things went bad, they would have to come to each other's rescue. Because that's what having a kind of separate community really is. You're interdependent. And
this is what's interesting. This is how I would have found you, or even me and Dom here, how we end up connecting. We met on an internet forum. It's so weird to think, because of shared interests. It's funny how in the modern age, that's a good point, Dom. You've kind of you've alluded to something. I think shared interests. We can use the internet. Oh, seriously, guys want to start a gang? Shared interests.
Manosphere. That's why it was created.
I met some cool motherfuckers on the internet. Seriously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's how it's getting done these days. I met the Wolves of Vinland from the internet. I went out camping just a couple months ago with some guys who I met on the Hall of Manly Excellence.
The Hall of Manly Excellence.
Yeah,
great name.
Yeah, it's another site. It used to be.
I'm guessing it's not a hall.
No. It used to be Arthur's Hall of Viking Manliness, and then Arthur left, and so it just became Manly Excellence or something like that. And so it's a blog, but it's basically the same guys who've been on the internet together for years, and they kind of grew up together in a way. It's like separated, but there's guys who've been on that forum since they were 14, 15 years old. So. Now that they're adults, they're making moves to come out and hang out together. They spent 4 days camping and shooting guns down in Oregon here, and so it was cool to hang out with them and go do that. And they really had, what was really interesting is that even from just knowing each other on the internet, they had a real connection, and they had the beginnings of a culture, really, because they had all these inside jokes. They weren't just internet jokes; they were specific to that forum. That they're
funny.
like, oh, remember
That's
3 years ago when so and so said this, and blah, blah. They have this history, and that's really what friendship is. I mean, you have this history, and you have these inside jokes, and that's how culture starts, I think. And so, I mean, you can take something like that from a forum, and that's awesome, and you can start there. But it really, until you bring it into the real world, it's really easy for people to just back out and go their own way. Yeah. So, I mean, I would like to see people. I mean, I'm kind of settled where I am, and so I'm kind of trying to maybe, I just went camping with a few other guys in this area like a couple last weekend, and I'm trying to do more of that in this direction. But people who don't really have any attachments yet, especially young guys, if you know 10 cool guys from an internet forum, why don't y'all move to the same place? Move. If you take over an apartment complex, you don't have to actually buy real estate. You could actually rent. You could rent things in the same building.
Yeah, like we had a great meetup here in like New York City. There was like Matt Forney and I think and myself, Dom, and there were a few guys who owns Manosphere.com, and there was 20 people. And we all went out and we had a blast together. It was like great meeting faces, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time.
Dude, and I felt like I had more in common with them than some of my friends that I've had for a long time.
Yeah, it was really cool. Jack, what's your opinion of the whole Manosphere thing?
And do you consider yourself part of the Manosphere?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I've been writing about this stuff really since like 2005, 2006 in some form or other. And I'll, still be writing about it in some way in 5 years. So, I mean, I know a lot of the guys who are in the Manosphere. I don't really, at the moment, I felt like, there was a while there where I felt like I knew pretty much what the Manosphere was. And right now I'm not as sure. I'm not.
I don't think anyone knows what it is.
No, it's
yeah. I mean, I think for a while there was a kind of a very tight group of like it's these 20 bloggers. It
was like 20 bloggers. In fact, at one stage, I think you and myself, Roosh had like a secret forum, like a sub forum for like 20 writers. It was called the Men's Writers Forum. And there was like 20 bloggers on there, and we used to communicate and have like secret meetings.
Exactly, yeah.
We were called the evil patriarchy, but that was like the original core.
Yeah, I feel like that was the time period when I felt like it was a very specific group of people. And I think obviously, new guys started writing about things, and I think also, there were some spin-offs into like people who started, writing about men, then kind of go into different areas of politics. And so they're little pools.
Yeah, it definitely got it definitely got like there's political elements, there's left wing, right wing. It's kind of but like it's hard to define what it is. But I definitely think it's like a self-help thing in general. It's like men getting together and trying to improve their lives and are kind of going slightly against the narrative, and really kind of searching for truth and self-discovery. I think that's the broadest thing I could kind of come up with, that's what all these kind of blogs have in common. It's all about self-improvement, doing better, and don't be yourself, be your best self. Always seek to educate, always seek to learn, and help each other out. I think that's what the Manosphere is. It's not right, it's not left. It's just getting better and seeking truth.
Yeah.
So, in the way of men, you said you held a lot of jobs that were masculine, like driving a truck, or now you're running your tattoo parlor. What are some more jobs that you held like that really connected you back to that primal state, and which one was the most out there memorable one? Satisfying one.
Well, I think I've actually had 37 jobs.
Fuck.
I think.
Damn it.
So I mean, but I mean, it's I always say like my first job was working in a turkey slaughterhouse, and that was I think that taught me some valuable lessons. But then I would say most of the stuff that I had after that was just the normal crappy jobs that everybody has, working at a Rite Aid and working as a waiter and a busser and all that kind of stuff, But it was definitely a period in when I started really thinking about masculinity. I try to walk my talk whenever I possibly can. And to the best of my ability. I'm not obviously like starting over at 18. But I quit my kind of corporate job and got some warehouse jobs to start with. And I would say my favorite job that I've ever had was, like I said, that job when I was delivering exercise equipment. Just because it's really heavy, and it's a hard job.
So
carrying a treadmill upstairs into people's houses and stuff. That's doing that every day, several times a day. Most people just groan if they have to move a small apartment, and we would do stuff like that every day. And so I think that was really helpful. Huh?
You actually what? Sorry, dude.
He's in awe right now.
I'm like, that sounds like the least fun job ever.
Oh, yeah. See, that was my favorite job. Yeah, it was a lot of hard work. It was just, especially, like when you get the big commercial treadmills and you have to move them upstairs and all kinds of stuff. They just dig into
Jack,
you.
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sign me up, please.
Yeah. No, it was really good because it taught me some of the things that I kind of drew on later in terms of like, manliness and understanding other men, and you get to this point where you understand how someone's going to move because you've known them long enough and watching like, he's going to move left, or I can tell the way his face is doing that he needs a break, or and guys in the Army learn all that kind of stuff too. When you learn to depend on another man in a way that like, if I drop this, even though it really, really hurts and my hands are bleeding, I'm dropping it on my best friend. And he's going to go down, he's going to fall down a flight of stairs with a treadmill on his.
I would drop it on Zolo in a heartbeat.
It's been great having you on the air here, Jack. A lot of guys love your stuff. They look up to you, and we do hope you keep writing what you're writing. You really are making a very positive contribution to men everywhere. Listen, if people want to get in touch or they want to know more, how can they reach you? Tell people about where they can get more Jack Donovan.
Well, my blog is jack-donovan.com, so that's easy enough. And I also have a Facebook author page that you can easily find me on Facebook, and that's an easy way for people to kind of follow. I don't do blog comments because I don't have time for that, but I do, Facebook is a thing of its own, and it just, people comment and do whatever they're going to do. So, it's kind of the easiest way to message me is through that or through my contact form on my website. But, I try to get back to everybody. I read every email I get, and then I try to get back to people. But my turnaround is not the best. I need a secretary.
Oh, dude, I know all about it. I get so many fucking emails and fucking comments and that. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
What, did you have Twitter?
I do the tweet. Yeah. I'm not very good at it. Like I don't keep up with it a lot. When I have a big article coming out, like the next few days, I'm not sure when it'll post, but I have for one of the websites I write for, Radix, I just wrote an article on manly women, and that was something I worked on for a few weeks. So when that comes out, I'll promote it on Twitter, and I'll promote it a bunch of other places just to make sure people know what it is. But
guys, if you haven't read it, you need to get on right after you listen to this podcast. You need to get on Amazon.com and you need to buy The Way of Men. It's one of the best fucking books I've ever read. Jack Donovan. Check it out.
He's a legend.
You have to read this book.
And get the t-shirt.
Get the t-shirt.
Get the artwork.
So yeah, apart from that, thanks a million, Jack, and it was absolute pleasure having you on here.
First guest on Hangover Radio, I think.
Yeah, we couldn't have picked a better one.
Couldn't have picked a better guy.
Dom told me earlier today, he said, listen, I was talking to Jack Donovan. He wants to do an interview. I was like, oh my god, seriously, I couldn't have been happier.
Excellent.
Getting you for the first person.
Awesome.
Right, so thanks a million, Jack.
All right, well, thanks for having me.
That was Jack Donovan there. Oh God, man! Listen, fair play to you. I gotta hand it to Dom. He earlier today. He was shooting emails and tweeting people and stuff, trying to get a guest for tonight. And you outdone yourself, Dom.
Thank you, man. Look, I do it for you guys.
For you, the listeners.
For you guys, the listeners. So I hope you enjoyed the interview today. This was definitely one of the main speakers in the Manosphere. We could not have gotten a bigger name for the first.
Yeah, I think Jack's book is absolutely phenomenal.
A must for your bookshelf, guys.
Maybe is it the best book to come out of the Manosphere?
You know what?
I think it is.
I think it is.
I really do. There are contenders.
Like the Naughty Nomad book.
Naughty Nomad.
book.
I like Sex 3.0 as well. That was fantastic.
No, that's. I mean, we've quoted it on the show.
It's up there. Way of Men, though, is a must-read for any man
that wants to get in touch with his masculinity.
Absolutely. And you know what, Jack? Absolute pleasure. He was a gentleman.
He was
scholar.
Great to talk to. Just an intelligent guy overall.
Very, very intelligent. And a lot of interesting. I'd love to have a pint with the guy.
Yeah.
Love to sit down. I'd say he's good to shoot the shit with. Don't share his interest in moving treadmills upstairs, but
which we're not exactly signing up for. But hey, we respect the guy. He definitely has a knack for this, masculine labor that we don't get enough of here.
So hopefully, guys, this will be the start of we'll get more interviewees on the show and that kind of thing.
Yeah, shoot us an email or tweet whatever on who you'd like to see on the show, and we'll do our best to get them on.
Absolutely, and keep your questions coming in. Next week we got a few more questions. We don't have time to answer them today, but for sure on the next episode we will get round to questions we haven't answered. And
remember to join the forum to get those questions answered.
NaughtyNomadForum.com. So if you want to reach Dom,
you can reach me at dom-torres.com, or you can email me at dom-torres@outlook.com. And
if you want to get in touch with me, you can obviously reach me through the forum. I'm also on Facebook. My website, of course, is www.naughtynomad.com. Did I say 4 W's? Yeah, that's the 5 beers talking, right? Okay, naughtynomad.com.
That was like 7 years ago. I don't know.
God damn it! Why did they invent like 3 W's together for the World Wide Web? It just makes things complicated for drunk people. I don't know. But anyway, naughtynomad.com, Twitter @naughtynomad. I'm also on Gmail, the naughtynomad@gmail.com. Or Google my ass, you'll find me. There's plenty up there. So keep them coming in, guys. And you know what? We
appreciate your feedback.
Big time. And we appreciate you guys listening. And until next time.
This has been Hangover.
This has been Hangover Radio. Adios. Should we play the jingle?
We should.
Yeah, okay. Right, guys, so we're gonna leave it till next week, but I will end it on this little jingle we've been working on. So without further ado, here we go.
Screwed, it's trashy, it ain't too classy. It's Hangover Radio.